just selecting a hackle. I like my hackle fibres on dry flies to be a bit longer than normal. That'll do. Doesn't do, we'll make it up as we go along. So that'll be about right. This is a fly that a good mate of mine, Christopher Pisano, put me onto it. It's a very, very simple fly. The Zulu itself is a very old British loch style pattern. It basically uses those two wonderful combinations of red and black. If you ever had to pick two colours to catch a trout in Tasmania to combine, you'd pick red and then you'd pick black to go with it. The only other one would be black and gold. So for the tag, you can use a whole bunch of different things for tags. I like to use something called Glow Bright. I don't know if it's still available or whatever. It's got a beautiful luminescence to it. So on cloudy days it really stands out, and bright days I wouldn't worry about it too much. But on cloudy days it is the bomb. So it's a strand material, it's a synthetic material. I just normally would go for a little fly like this, just double it over, so I've got 2 strands, and just neck that in. Try not to catch the hook. And a tag about that long. And keep the bits. For this one, I quite often use, because usually when I'm tying flies, I'll tie a whole bunch of possum emergers and the dries that I need. Inevitably, I end up using possum fur for it, the really dark black stuff. You don't have to, you can use black seal's fur. I've got some of the original seal's fur kicking around here somewhere that Ross Pullen imported many, many years ago. Ross Pullen used to have the Essential Fly Fisher in Launceston. Unfortunately he doesn't, because he spent many great hours in the fly fisher with Ross. Again with the dubbing, off the tail, just give it a good rub. The Black Zulu Tag is probably my go-to Western Lakes polaroiding fly. These days when time is a little bit restricted in terms of when I can get out, I tend to save my days and look at the forecast and go Western Lakes rather than back to the old stomping ground of Arthur's Lake, which, as we all know, is probably a shadow of its former self. So basically this is a beetle fly, or it's a beetle fly. When I was a kid, I used to fish a lot of rivers, and whenever you cleaned a fish, it would always have 2 things in it: beetles, black ones, and stick caddis. So with the Western Lakes fish, there's a lot of myths about Western Lakes fish, and you guys probably know more about it than I ever will. But they're the great opportunistic feeders in Tasmania, in my view. They're basically just like a constant conveyor belt of yum char. Whatever comes along, they'll just eat it. And they really don't give a bugger what it is. They are just a nice little plump beetle-y shape. That look all right, John? Mm. Back in the days before they kept the gate shut till October, some of the best dry fly fishing in the Western Lakes was actually in September, particularly on those places where the Victorians end up as soon as the gate opens, like Botsford. Those 2 bottom lagoons, those 2 little southern ponds on the end of Botsford were terrific just for wade polaroiding, and inevitably if you could find a fish, it would eat a dry fly. Even in August is the earliest I've been out there. But I about 3 years ago, I built myself a little boat just because for something to do. So now I tend to, when I go to Western Lakes, I'll put the little boat on different lakes, and I'll use the boat to get to places where no one else can go, which has led to some beautiful days fishing out in the Western Lakes when, on a Saturday, which is normally a kiss of death for the Western Lakes, you can have relative solitude. With the hackle, nothing too complicated with that. You really just want something that helps it go plip and plop and then float. And I'm actually amazed that that's working for me. And I've just got to be careful. That's probably enough hackle. You don't want to over hackle it. I've never ever varnished the head of my flies, because there's nothing worse than getting out in the field ready to tie a fly on and you can't get the bloody leader through the eye because it's full of varnish. And I reckon by the time the head unwinds, it's probably time to tie a new fly on anyway. Anyway, there we go. Zulu Tag. You can tie the body a lot blacker if you want. Basically, it's a fly that goes plop. Fish will turn around and look for it. Sometimes when you're polaroiding, I reckon it's better to cast the fly to one side rather than dead in front, to make the fish turn to your fly.